Our hypnosis lecture, and let's get it started. I think you're going to enjoy this. So hypnosis. There are three kind of overall questions you need to be familiar with. Number one, what it is and some examples of it. Number two, you should understand what kind of powers the hypnotist has over the hypnotized, and the theories about what exactly is going on with hypnosis. Is it an altered state or just an extension of our normal consciousness? So let's start with the definition. I'll give you the kind of the book definition. Excuse me. Hypnotism is a social interaction, so that's an important part of the definition, in which one person, the hypnotist, suggests to another, the participant, that certain perceptions or feelings or thoughts or behaviors will spontaneously occur. So after you write it down, you got to think about, what does that actually mean? It is, I think, in its essence, the idea that humans have a suggestibility about reality, that we can alter our perceptions of reality or alter our behavior based on suggestions from somebody else, and then we can enter this state in which we take the suggestions as if that's actually what we're perceiving. It's very strange. Let's get into some details and see what we mean, but I'm going to want you to come back to this definition and see how the examples of it fit into it. And I didn't write it down on the slide, but this idea that we have an open-mindedness or a suggestibility about the reality we perceive is the basic idea. Here's some examples. You don't have to memorize these. You should just kind of have a sense of these are typical things that a hypnotized person might do. So I might put a different type of example on the test that's similar, though. The hypnotist might say something like, your eyelids are shutting so tight that you cannot open them even when you try. And hypnotized subject or participant will then not be able to open their eyes. The hypnotist might tell the subjects that they should forget the number 6 and then tell them to count the fingers on their hand. And the subjects will go through and count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. And then they'll sit there puzzled. Like, how do I come up with 11 fingers? I have 11 fingers? So they're doing as they're told, and they're kind of altering their perception of reality. They're not faking it. I mean, you can fake being hypnotized, but people who are truly hypnotized, and it does exist, are not faking it. They'll put a bottle of something under your nose and ask you to kind of enjoy the wonderful perfume that they're putting in front of you. And the hypnotized subject will thoroughly enjoy it and kind of sniff it deeply and linger in its scent. And it turns out it's actually ammonia. But to the subject, because it's been suggested to them while they're in the trance that it is this beautiful perfume, they will like it. The hypnotist may say, please describe the picture I'm holding, and the subject will describe it in great detail, even though the hypnotist is not actually holding a picture. This happened in a hypnosis, kind of a group hypnosis in my psych class that I witnessed back when I was in college. The hypnotist said, when I tap my clipboard, you will scratch your left ankle. And not all of us had been hypnotized. Some of us just watched, and we watched all the people who had been hypnotized go down and scratch their left ankle. Told to forget all the things you've done once out of the hypnotic state. Subjects will then report that they don't remember what they did or have post-hypnotic amnesia. If you test them on that, it turns out that people actually do kind of remember what was done. And if there was some sort of post-hypnotic suggestion placed that they do remember it, they will retrieve it. So people do remember what is going on, And it's not clear. At the moment, are they truly unable to recall the info, or are they distracting themselves and kind of withholding the info? More on that later. So first of all, let me emphasize, as I mentioned earlier, it's not a trick. Hypnotized people are sincerely perceiving the world as it seems they are. But it's not clear exactly what's going on in their heads, and we'll have more of that near the end of the lecture. So here's what happens in hypnosis. The hypnotist will have a kind of a brief hypnotic induction where after they've explained what's going on, they will induce the trance. And then they will present a series of suggested experiences that can start kind of from the easy all the way to the difficult. Easy might be you have stretched your arms out to the side and they're now going to move together. Difficult would be with your eyes open, you're going to see a non-existent person. The hypnotist may set up a post-hypnotic suggestion. So the idea that, like, if you tap something twice, you will become intensely focused. There was a baseball player named Bill Buckner who underwent hypnosis, and he wanted to be more focused, kind of hyper-focused at the plate when he was batting. And so his post-hypnotic suggestion was when he tapped the bat on the plate 3 times, he would then go into a state of hyper alertness, and he said it worked for him. And then at the end, the hypnotist brings the participant back out of the trance. So here's some kind of myths and questions and answers. Can anyone be hypnotized? And the truth is, to a certain extent, nearly everyone is at least somewhat suggestible. Although you can always choose not to undergo hypnosis. So for example, I sat in my class and I don't like giving up control to I don't like being out of control. So I don't like being under the influence. I don't like somebody else having control of me. So I sat there and watched, and listened, but did not undergo the hypnosis. There's this idea that the hypnotist has his power over you, and that is very much not true. The power really lies with the subject or the participant. The hypnotist has no power over you that you do not give to her or him. The power really lies in the participant's openness to suggestion. And it turns out among the population there's a range of hypnotizability. Some people are not really open to suggestion and cannot be hypnotized, or it's very difficult to hypnotize them. Most people are somewhat hypnotizable, and a few people are very suggestible and will do quite a number of things. Among the very suggestible, it's about 20% of the population. They can successfully carry out that suggestion not to smell or react to a bottle of ammonia under the nose, which is hard because ammonia is, extremely strong smelling. The people who are very suggestible typically have kind of great imaginations and a rich fantasy life. If they're reading a novel or watching a movie, they get deeply absorbed into it, and those people tend to be very hypnotizable. Can hypnosis be therapeutic? Oh, sorry. I don't know why I went on to that. Can hypnosis enhance recall of forgotten events? So that's a tricky one. Yes and no. Hypnosis can definitely boost recall, but you have to combine your knowledge of hypnosis with your knowledge of memory and retrieval. Remember how memory is completely subjective and a very constructed thing. So you can also, through hypnosis, construct false memories. So because memory is a combination of fact and reconstruction, while hypnosis enhances recall, it doesn't necessarily enhance accurate recall. And if you go back to the chapter on memory, they talk about Elizabeth Loftus and her studies of retrieving repressed memories, and that type of thing is very suspect. And it used to be, I apologize for all the dings, it used to be that testimony of that sort was allowed in court, and now it's generally not regarded as very good evidence in court. Can you force people to act against their will? So this is a yes, but there's a but with it. Hypnotized people can be induced to perform even apparently dangerous acts, like dip their hand, I said this on that quiz day, dip their hand in fuming acid and then throw it into somebody else's face. And then later have no memory of the incident. The but is that you can ask people who are not hypnotized to do that, and ask a control group, like subjects who are not hypnotized. You can say, pretend you are hypnotized, and the experimenter will treat all the subjects the same, and the non-hypnotized subjects will do that same thing as well. They have convinced people who are hypnotized and not hypnotized to steal exams, to sell illegal drugs, to deface sacred books. So there's this idea that you won't do something against your conscience when you're hypnotized. And I would say that's basically, I would say a better way to put it is people who are hypnotized won't do anything against their will any more so than they would if they weren't hypnotized, if that makes sense. But as we'll find in the social psych unit, people can do a lot of crazy things under the influence of authority or conformity, and they don't have to be hypnotized to do that. Hope that was clear. The upshot is people don't really behave any differently when they're hypnotized than they would when they're conscious, but they can be made to do crazy things in both. Can hypnosis be therapeutic? Yes, very much so. It is a strong therapeutic technique. You can use post-hypnotic suggestions to alleviate headaches, to get rid of warts, to get rid of stress-related skin disorders, to stop smoking. My mom successfully used hypnosis to stop smoking for a number of years. Can hypnosis alleviate pain? Yes, it can. You can stick people's hands in an ice bath, and if they're unhypnotized, they will experience intense pain in something like 15 to 20, 25 seconds. When they are hypnotized, they will keep their hand in there, and if it's been suggested to them that they are feeling no pain, they will report little pain. That's not something you can really fake. So how is this all taking place? There's this idea about sensation and perception. So when given a painful stimulus, like a cut to the skin from a surgeon's knife or a small electric shock, it is clear that people are sensing it, not perceiving it. So they will still sense it, like their heart rate will go up with the shock or the knife, but they will report no pain. So what's actually going on? Is hypnosis an altered state? There are two theories, and the book does a good job talking about them. The first one is the divided consciousness theory, and that was promoted by a guy named Ernest Hilgard. And Hilgard said that, we basically split our consciousness in two. That the hypnotized part of us is unaware of what is going on, but there's always a part of our consciousness, he called it the hidden observer, that is actually aware of what's going on. So for him, yes, it is an altered state in which you somehow divide your consciousness. So this explains a lot. It explains why people can say they don't remember something and not truly, sincerely not be able to recall it, but then later told, okay, go ahead and recall it now, and they do, because part of them did remember it, but the part that was in control of the consciousness at the time, the hypnotized part didn't remember it. There's another theory, social influence theorists. Social influence theorists say that hypnotic phenomena are not unique to hypnosis, that the things people do and perceive are really an extension of everyday social behavior, that we are very influenceable by other people. Again, that's social psych. And so there's nothing really magical going on here. The key part to that is the idea that they say that hypnotized people are playing a role, that they're really getting into it. And they themselves believe they are hypnotized, so it's as if they are so into the character that they think they're hypnotized. But they're not really. Nothing unusual is going on. One reason they think that is if you try to hypnotize somebody who doesn't know about hypnosis, you can't do it. People unfamiliar with hypnosis don't get hypnotized. So that lends strength to the idea that it's the expectations of the person being hypnotized that leads them to kind of buy into this role. At this point, it's not clear which is which. I think regardless, the ability that humans have to accept this alternate version of reality is pretty bizarre and amazing. It's 16 minutes. You can shut this off now if you want, but not necessary for the test. I do have a short hypnosis story. Like I said, I took a intro psych class with a really good professor, Phoebe Ellsworth, my freshman year at Stanford, and a dorm buddy of mine, Bill, was in the class too, and Randy and a couple other guys. And one unit, she brought a hypnotist in, and he hypnotized the whole class. And we had to, we could choose to participate or not. And like I said, I didn't like it, so I preferred to watch. And both Bill and Randy underwent the trance, and they did a number of things. And one of them was when the hypnotist tapped his clipboard, then they would reach down and scratch their left ankle. Then he brought them out of the trance, and we're going back to the dorm for lunch, and we're all walking back. And some point, Randy noticed that Bill kept scratching his left ankle, and we also had been joined by another friend of ours who had been on a bike, but he got off the bike and he was just walking the bike, but the bike kept clicking. And so what we realized was, what I realized was, because I was the only one who was had been watching the whole thing, was Bill had missed the instructions when he was supposed to come out of the hypnotic trance. And so he had never kind of returned to normality. He was still under that hypnotic suggestion of when he heard a tapping sound, like a tap on a clipboard, that he was going to scratch his ankle. And so Bill kept doing it, but he didn't know why he was doing it. And he started making up reasons for, did I not change my socks today? Like, it's just really itchy. And this bike kept clicking, and he kept scratching his sock. And he attributed it to the sock. And I hadn't really thought about it. It just kind of in the moment, we were all surprised and we're talking about it. And Bill is adamantly claiming he's not hypnotized. And freshmen boys being freshmen boys, when we got back to the dorm, they quickly told everybody. And the lunch table, we kind of spent the lunch table, everybody tormenting Bill. And I felt bad about it, but it was too late to kind of calm it down. So after lunch, I took Bill back to the psych building and found Professor Ellsworth's office, and she and the hypnotist were there. They're talking or having lunch, I forget. And I explained to them what had happened, and he said, yeah, that can happen if you're not paying attention. He put Bill back under the hypnotic trance and then told him to, whenever he heard a clicking sound or a tapping sound, to no longer need to scratch his left ankle, and then took him back out of the trance, and that was it. And Bill kind of had a hazy understanding of the whole thing. It was weird. And I'll stop there and get to work on the other lecture. 20 minutes. Bye.